Hello and welcome back to Indistinct Chatter. I'm Eliza. Today is May 5th and we have snow. It's a little bit more like sleet. Well, right now it's snow. Earlier it was sleet, but either way, I was laying up by the pool this weekend. I got a little sunburn. I was wearing my shorts yesterday, and now today I had to pop on my winter jacket to take Holden outside. And I know it's kind of a jokey thing to be like, we needed this whenever it rains or snows, but we do need this. Did you know Colorado has been in a long-term drought? Do you know how long? Just a cool, casual 22 years. It's called a mega drought. And guess what else? It's the driest it's been in 1,200 years. Insane. As of today, 100% of Colorado is considered in some level of a drought. So yeah, we quite literally needed this. But I am not here to talk about the weather. Yesterday was Met Monday, so today I'm going in on the Met Gala. But before we get into the history, the fashion, or even the insane price tag just to attend, let's talk about some news that happened since we last spoke. Our first story today is Spirit Airlines. Spirit Airlines is gone, like gone, gone. The runway ran out. They've been the butt of a lot of jokes, but Spirit Airlines officially seized all operations on Saturday, May 2nd. So while social media is still pumping out memes and paper oxygen jokes, this is actually a huge blow to the US economy. After two bankruptcies in less than 2 years, a last ditch $500 million federal bailout from the Trump administration fell through when major creditors like Citadel and Heirs Management rejected the deal. And why did they reject the deal, you may be wondering? Isn't it obvious? Greed, baby. They decided that they would get more money by liquidating Spirit's assets than by taking a stake in the company. A lot of people love Spirit simply because it's an affordable option to travel. Like you get nickel and dimed, but if you just want the bare bones, it's great. However, this is not just about losing cheap flights to Vegas or wherever you need to get to. 17,000 people lost their jobs overnight, from pilots to baggage handlers, and allegedly, they didn't even know they were about to lose their jobs. I saw some people online were saying that flights were being canceled on Saturday and being rebooked for future dates while it was being announced that Spirit was no more. So basically, they were being rebooked for flights that would never exist, and the employees had no idea themselves. This is the first major US airline to liquidate in 2 decades. For travelers, this means less competition, and less competition more than likely means higher ticket prices for other budget flights like JetBlue or Frontier. Basically, this probably means that this is the end of the low-cost flight era. Not to mention, we are still in a war, so fuel prices are still increasing as well, making it more and more impossible for smaller airlines to have competitive low prices. So, jokes aside, this is not good. It is not a good sign for our economy. However, there is some good news, if you can call it that. Delta, United, Southwest, and a few others are capping rescue fares at around $200 for stranded passengers. Rescue fares are just heavily discounted tickets offered to passengers stranded by another carrier's operational failure or a sudden shutdown. Because, like I mentioned, people were still scheduled to fly when they shut down, leaving thousands stranded. Some reports said 20,000 people were stranded without any advance notice. Also, customer service systems, both in person and online, were shut down at the same time that the company was being shut down. So passengers couldn't even request refunds. Also, another good thing out of this, airlines are creating job pipelines for Spirit workers. So hopefully they can secure jobs quickly. And this is a side note, it's related, it's sad but cute. I read that there was a pilot for Spirit on his last retirement flight when the shutdown happened. He ended up catching a Southwest flight home, and the crew surprised him with a full retirement send off, including a water cannon salute on the runway. It's so cute. And speaking of sad but not so cute, Muffa Pristone drama is back. Again, the internet does what it does, and I got wind of this drama via memes. Yesterday, May 4th, the Supreme Court stepped in to temporarily restore access to mifepristone. So last week, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a ruling that effectively banned sending the pill through the mail and required in-person doctor visits. So essentially, thousands of people overnight lost access. And remember, going to a clinic in person is a luxury for a lot of people. It's a privilege to be able to take a day off of work, to drive to a town with a clinic, and wait there for your turn. Not everyone can just scoot on over during their lunch break and then be back in an hour. For a lot of people, especially really rural people, it's a whole day affair. So SCOTUS, specifically Justice Alito, granted a 1-week pause on that ruling, which expires next Monday on May 11th. So for now, there's still telehealth available. If you're unfamiliar, mifepristone, which again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, I'm not a doctor. It's used in roughly 63% of all U.S. abortions. If the mail order ban sticks, it would create regulatory chaos. That's what they're calling it, for clinics and patients, especially in states where access is already restricted. Many clinics offer telehealth, including for abortions. 1 in 4 abortions are provided via telehealth. So this mail order ban requiring in-person visits very well could lead to an unstable, fast-shifting environment where overwhelming, fragmented, and sometimes contradictory rules from federal, state, and private entities hinder compliance, increase costs, and impede patient care. Basically, it creates an environment where healthcare professionals are pushed to their limits, causing them to be reactive and make fast decisions that can threaten safety and operational stability, aka overworking already overworked healthcare professionals. The court isn't necessarily deciding if the drug is safe yet. They're just giving themselves some time to review emergency requests from the manufacturers. So basically, while we wait for the powers that be to decide, we're pretty much just watching a high stakes legal game of hot potato that could change the healthcare landscape for millions of people in just 1 week. No big deal. Meanwhile, men can get all the boner pills they want via mail without ever having to step into a clinic. Men can be prescribed erectile dysfunction medication via a 5-minute phone call without an in-person exam. And actually, it doesn't even need to be a phone call. You've seen the Hims commercials. They can just chat on their phone in the app. Mifepristone, by the way, has a safety record comparable to common over-the-counter drugs. So why do women need to go in person? The state of Louisiana argues that mifepristone is a unique drug because of its purpose. Therefore, standard telehealth safety rules shouldn't apply. I argue that it's simply for control of women and women's bodies because everyone is so obsessed with our bodies. Oh my gosh, I get so heated. No man will ever understand this. Truly, I wish there was a way for men to be a woman for just 1 week. I have PCOS, so I get some pretty gnarly cramps, especially around my period. And sometimes I think to myself when I'm at the worst of the worst, I think to myself, I would never wish this on my worst enemy. But I do wish it upon men. Like just once, I'd like you to experience the shooting pain, and not just in my ovarian area, but the pain that I get up my legs, my back, my arms, my fingers, my head, and yes, my asshole. It's like being electrocuted, set on fire, stabbed with a J hook, and being both squished and stretched from the inside and outside all at once. And that's not being over dramatic. That's not even half of the other things that I deal with because of PCOS. And even just in general as a woman, like the shit that we have to deal with, aside from like the things that are happening in our bodies. Okay, sorry. I've calmed down. Here's the thing, though, that you need to understand about why this matters, even if abortion isn't something that you personally have to think about, or even if you're 100% against abortion. This isn't just about abortion. It's about whether the federal government can regulate a drug that the FDA has already said is safe, or whether individual states can override that. And that's a big deal for a lot of things beyond this one medication. So I suggest, man or woman, pro choice or not, I suggest that you pay attention to this because they come for one, they'll come for another. Now, this next story is for the girls. So the 152nd Kentucky Derby was on Saturday, May 2nd, and I have my own opinions about animal welfare and all that crap. However, Sherry DeVoe became the first female trainer in history to win the Run for the Roses. And I love an underdog story, so I figured I would talk about this a little bit. Sherry's horse, Golden Tempo, was a massive 24-1 underdog. He was literally in last place at the final turn before weaving his way through and winning by just a neck. And in a sport that often has controversial records with animals, Sherry did make it a point to say that the horse comes first and that they would let Golden Tempo decide if he's up for the Preakness based on his recovery. Horse racing is a rich person's hobby. So I had no clue that there were more races. I was like, what the heck is a Preakness? Preakness? I don't even know. The Kentucky Derby is just the beginning. The Triple Crown of thoroughbred racing consists of 3 prestigious American races for 3-year-old horses. What were you doing at 3? The first is the Kentucky Derby, 1.25 mile at Churchill Downs. Then 2 weeks later is the Preakness Stakes. It's a 1 3/16 mile race at Pimlico, but this year it's at Laurel Park in Maryland due to renovations. And then 3 weeks after that is the final race, the Belmont Stakes, a 1.5 mile race at Belmont Park. But this year it's a shorter distance of 1.25 miles, and it's being held at Saratoga Racecourse in New York. Winning all 3 in one season is the highest honor in U.S. horse racing. Only 13 horses have ever won the Triple Crown. Justify was the last to do it in 2018, and like I said, this is a rich person's hobby, and the prizes reflect that. The winner of the Kentucky Derby takes home approximately $3.1 million. The winner from the Preakness Stakes takes home approximately $1.2 million, and the same goes to the winner of the Belmont Stakes. Not too shabby. Also, this win for Sherry and Golden Tempo was also a huge moment for Daisy Phipps Polito, whose family has a century-long legacy in racing. Daisy is one of Golden Tempo's owners and manages the racing operations of Phipps Stables. Sherry is the trainer. Jose Ortiz is Golden Tempo's jockey, and this was also his first win. And speaking of animal welfare, I have an update on the beagles in Wisconsin. 1,500 beagles from Ridgeland Farms are being rescued and sent to new forever homes this week. Yay! I love beagles, and I love all animals, but beagles are just so cute too. And I love that they're getting out of cages and they get to go live in homes where they are loved and they don't have to worry about being tested on. After a long legal battle over their welfare, animal advocacy groups finally secured their release. This is a huge win, and I love to hear it. And before I talk about the Met Gala, I've got something else related to billionaires, but a little bit different. So while everyone was at the Met Gala or talking about the Met, there was a little something brewing on the West Coast. A ballot to impose a one-time 5% tax on billionaires' assets gathered 1.5 million signatures, which is well over the requirement for the November ballot. Of course, this means that Silicon Valley is losing their shit. Execs have already poured $93 million into a campaign to defeat it. And I just think, bitch, just pay your taxes. Clearly, you all have enough if you're dropping $93 million to not pay taxes. Google co-founder Sergey Brin allegedly spent $57 million to fight it and even moved to Nevada to escape the tax. Like, come on, guys. It is not that hard. We lowly peasants pay tax making as low as $7.25 an hour. And however little servers and bartenders make, I don't even know, 2 something an hour. Damn, things people do to just not do the bare minimum. Now let's talk about what everyone is actually talking about today, or at least everyone on my algorithm. Last night was the Met Gala, and there was some drama. First, the theme. Okay, the theme this year was costume art, and the dress code was fashion art. It celebrated the opening of the Met's new permanent galleries, and I'll get into the fashion in a minute, but first, the drama. So, the drama that I saw instantly when I was scrolling last night was about Chris Smalls. The Amazon labor union founder was tackled and arrested by NYPD police after jumping a barricade outside the museum. He and a bunch of other protesters were outside protesting the fact that Jeff Bezos and his wife Lauren Sanchez were honorary chairs of the gala. They were also protesting worker exploitation, tax avoidance, and Amazon's complicity in Israeli military actions in Gaza. That's according to The Independent. Allegedly, protesters even hid hundreds of fake pee bottles in the museum to highlight Amazon's working conditions, aka allegations that workers have to urinate in bottles instead of getting proper bathroom breaks. Protesters also cited Amazon's cloud computing contract with ICE, according to Yahoo News. The demonstration was part of a larger week-long effort by activists to highlight the contrast between billionaire wealth and Amazon worker conditions. Keep that in mind when we talk about the price that it takes just to attend the Met Gala. But first, the theme and the fashion. The theme this year, like I said, was costume art, and the dress code was fashion is art. Sometimes the theme and dress code are very specific. Sometimes it's left up to interpretation. I think this year it felt a little more on the open-ended side of the spectrum, which, in my opinion, I like. I think it opens it up for designers to get extremely creative. Like, it's specific, it has guidelines, but it is very much open, if that makes sense. The concept was to examine costume art as the intersection of fashion and art. The exhibition examines diverse types of bodies, so not just sizes. We're talking about all sorts of stuff, aside even just from age. We're talking about the pregnant body, the corpulent body, the disabled body, and obviously the naked body. So attendees were encouraged to treat the body as a living canvas, focusing on the construction and artistry of fashion rather than just the label. So let's discuss some of the attendees and some of the fashion. First up, we have Beyonce. Beyonce returned to the Met Gala for the first time in 10 years. She arrived in a custom Olivier Rousting skeleton dress. Also, obviously, fashion has a lot of names that I am unfamiliar with. So if I butcher the pronunciation, it is what it is. I will practice more for next time. Her skeleton-inspired gown was covered in crystals with a massive feather train. She attended as a co-chair, which is a big deal, and she brought along her husband, Jay-Z, and her eldest daughter, Blue Ivy. Normally, children are not allowed, so I think you have to be 18 to attend the gala. I don't know if they made an exception because also Nicole Kidman brought her daughter too, and I don't know her age. So I don't know if they got a pass because they are co-chairs or if their kids. It was very much a Nepo night, by the way. So I don't know if people brought their kids just for the red carpet or what. I don't know. It's a very private event, okay? I would say though, aside from all that, Beyonce was definitely on theme. Okay, she went as a skeleton. And another very obvious on theme attendee was Heidi Klum. She's the queen of costume. And honestly, she's the master in disguise. She arrived as a living statue inspired by Raphael Monite's 1847 sculpture, Veiled Vestal. Emma Chamberlain, serving as Vogue's red carpet correspondent, wore a custom hand-painted gown by Mugler, which was a tribute to Impressionist and Expressionist masterpieces, so she literally showed up as a living canvas on theme. And I mentioned Nicole Kidman, she brought her daughter. She's also a co-chair. She arrived in a stunning sequined Chanel gown. I don't really know if she was on theme. It felt very safe. It felt very regular red carpet, gorgeous, but I don't know what the theme was for her if she was on theme. Maybe she is the theme. I don't know. Sabrina Carpenter wore a dress made of actual film strips from the 1954 movie Sabrina. And I mean, I love attention to detail. And I also love an if you know moment, On theme. Bad Bunny aged himself 53 years with his look. On theme. Katy Perry wore a chrome mask over her entire face. Also on theme. I saw a lot of hate for her look. The headpiece was designed to be a literal and symbolic reflection that invites the observer to consider that their perception of others can mirror their own internal world and conversely mask truth, a representative for Perry told Vogue. Lisa from Blackpink had these beautiful prosthetic arms holding a veil over her head, and her stylist revealed that they made a 3D model of Lisa's actual body to get the arms exactly right. That is art. And I loved it. These looks aren't supposed to be like a regular award show look. They're not regular pretty gowns, red carpet looks. And I think people often forget that this is an art gala. It's a showcase. The looks are to reflect the showcase, the exhibition. This isn't just about pretty dresses. Okay? Keep that in mind. And Cher, she was there. She wore a leather and lace Burberry look, which was a nod to her 1974 Met Gala look, the naked dress. She joked that when she wore a naked dress to her first Met Gala look back in 1974, that people lost their damn minds. It was a big deal. It was, it was a freaking scandal. Now, nobody would even notice. And she's right. I mean, not even just for the Met, but in general, there's a lot of sheerness. And really, that's all I have for fashion. You can look up the looks. I mean, I'm not a fashion or art expert, and without visuals, I don't want to bore you with just my opinions and nothing to look at. But I do have one more talked about moment. So Blake Lively showed up at just hours after settling her lawsuit with Justin Baldoni. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll try to make it really short because it's a lot. But essentially, Blake Lively was in a very public legal dispute with her It Ends With Us director and co-star Justin Baldoni. Accusations were made, texts were leaked, it was messy, it was not a good look. But they settled the case literally the same day as the Met Gala, and she showed up in archival Versace with a train, and she had her 4 kids' watercolor paintings on her purse, which honestly, I do think is really cute, and I do think it's on theme. So that's last night. But now, I want to take you back. Let's get in the time machine again, okay? We're going way back because all of this, the looks, the carpet, the chaos, all of it has a history that not a lot of people know, and I think it's quite interesting. And I'm not even a big fashion girly. Like, I like to look at pretty things, don't get me wrong. I always say glitter is my favorite color when people ask me. I don't actually always say that. I just started saying it because I didn't my favorite color changes all the time, and I love glitter. I'll stare at it all day. Um, but anyway, okay. So the Met Gala, okay? It started with $50 tickets and 0 celebrities. So here's what most people don't know. The Met Gala has been happening since 1948. So that's almost 80 years. And for a huge chunk of that time, it was nothing like what we see today. No red carpet, no themes, no Lady Gaga stripping out of 4 outfits on the steps, just a dinner. It was started by a woman named Eleanor Lambert, and I want to talk about her for a second because she is fascinating, and I do feel like barely anyone knows who she is. Eleanor Lambert was a publicist, and not just any publicist. She's like Kris Jenner of the 40s. She is the woman who basically invented American Fashion Week. She created the International Best Dress List, which is still a thing, and she actually used to handwrite it herself and leak it to reporters. Basically, she manufactured prestige. She spent decades convincing the world that American designers deserved to be in the same conversations as French ones, at a time when Paris was considered the only place that fashion actually came from. Before her, American designers were literally just copying French patterns. In 1948, she created the Met Gala as a fundraiser to support the Costume Institute at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, which, by the way, if you haven't been, it's absolutely amazing. I was there for an entire day, and I think I only explored like 2% of the museum. So if you get the chance to go, maybe carve out a couple of days. Anyway, the Costume Institute had just been founded, and obviously it needed money. And what's the best way to get some money? A party, duh. So Eleanor threw a party. Tickets were $50 each, which is around $600 in today's money. Guests were mostly New York socialites and people from the fashion industry. There was no theme, there was no carpet. It was genuinely just a nice dinner for rich people who cared about fashion. And for the next 20 years, that's basically all it was. A fancy charity dinner. Important, yes. Glamorous, sure. But not what it would become. Then Diana Vreeland walked in and changed everything. Diana Vreeland is one of those people where the more you learn about her, the more you're kind of obsessed. So she was the editor-in-chief of American Vogue from 1963 to 1971. She was known for being completely unapologetically eccentric. She once wrote in Vogue that the bikini was the biggest thing since the atom bomb. She told her staff things like, I want to see the sky, in reference to models' hair. She had her apartment walls painted red because she wanted to feel like she was living inside a garden of roses. Honestly, I think she sounds great. I mean, she's like the godmother of creating a vibe. And people used to say that she didn't really care much about historical accuracy. If a dress didn't look fab enough on a mannequin, she would pin it, tuck it, and change it up. Because of that, though, curators hated her, but the public loved her because she made history look sexy. And we love sexy history, right? She had a lot of artistic freedom. In 1972, after she left Vogue, she became a consultant to the Costume Institute at the Met. And this is when everything changed. So first, she moved the gala to the Met itself so guests could actually walk through the museum and see the exhibition. Before that, the gala was held at places like the Waldorf Astoria and the Rainbow Room. Nice venues, but not the same vibe. Very much a genius move, in my opinion. Second, she introduced theme exhibitions and made those themes the center of the event. The first themed gala was in 1973, and the theme was The World of Balenciaga, honoring the designer Cristobal Balenciaga. Third, and this is a big deal for the gala, she started inviting actual celebrities. Elizabeth Taylor, Diana Ross, Elton John, Cher, Andy Warhol. These were not just fashion people anymore. These were cultural icons. She turned what had been an industry dinner into something that felt like a party, and a party that people actually wanted to be at. And remember how I said she was like the godmother of creating a vibe? She didn't just want a dinner, obviously. So she would spray Chanel No. 5 through the air conditioning vents to the museum so the exhibition would actually smell like the theme. She wanted mood. She wanted a vibe. By the time Diana died in 1989, the Met Gala was already a completely different animal from what Eleanor Lambert created. But it still had one more major transformation to go through. Anna Wintour. If you have ever seen The Devil Wears Prada, or maybe you saw The Devil Wears Prada 2, which I saw over the weekend at the drive-in, obviously the first is a 10 out of 10. The second one cannot compete to that, but it didn't let me down. Anyway, if you've seen the movie, you have a general idea of the energy. Sharp, exacting, wearing sunglasses inside. None of that is by accident. It's not made up. The character, Miranda Priestley, is widely believed to be based on Anna Wintour. So in 1995, Anna Wintour became chair of the Met Gala. And the thing she did that changed everything was she controlled the guest list completely. Every single person who attends the Met Gala has to be approved by Anna Wintour, not the museum, not the designers, Anna. She has apparently turned away guests that designers personally paid seats for. She has told people absolutely not. She has banned people. She is that powerful and she's that committed. Also, not only does she control the guest list, she also controls the seating chart. It's basically one giant game of Tetris that she plays around with for months. Who sits next to whom to create power pairings. Basically, if you're a billionaire, you're boring, yawn, you sit in the back. Now, let's say maybe you're a nobody, but you're the it girl of the moment. You sit at Anna's table. She also moved the gala to the first Monday in May, which is when it's been ever since. Met Monday. She grew the guest list to include celebrities from sports, entertainment, tech, business, politics. She coordinated massive media coverage. She basically turned the Met Gala into the Super Bowl of fashion, except the Super Bowl doesn't ban parsley from the menu, which, true story, Anna Wintour has reportedly banned parsley, garlic, onion, and bruschetta from the Met Gala dinner. All my favorites, to be honest, but I get it. Parsley because it gets stuck in your teeth, unless you're like me and you have really gappy teeth. Garlic and onion for obvious reasons, and bruschetta because she was worried about people spilling on their gowns. And I'm saying that right, I think. It is not bruschetta, it's bruschetta. I don't know. Maybe I'm not right. That's what I learned on TikTok. Honestly, though, her bans, they sound a little crazy, but I think they're respectful if you think about it. You have this Valentino couture dress on. The last thing that you need is marinara getting on your dress. Like, we're talking about gowns that cost more than a brand new car, maybe more than your home, even. So I would say that's good looking out on Anna's part. She also banned selfies inside in 2015. She wanted to maintain the mystery, the prestige. She wants the only photos that we see to be perfect professional ones. Total control of the narrative. And as a Capricorn, I respect that. Under Anna's leadership, the money raised has gone from the tens of millions to a record $31 million in 2025 alone. And as of 2019, the event has raised over $200 million total for the Costume Institute. Now, the first ticket was $50, spendy for the time. This year's ticket, can you guess? $100,000 per person. A table for 10 starts at $350,000. And when you attend, you usually attend with your stylist, maybe multiple stylists. And the themes are kind of just where it gets interesting. I think that's what most people, like you and me, us lowly cretins, that's the only thing that we really pay attention to, right? The theme, the looks. So every year, the theme comes from the Costume Institute's spring exhibition. And some of these themes have produced very iconic fashion moments that people still talk about years later. I mean, I just mentioned Cher's dress from over 50 years ago. In 2015, the theme was China through the Looking Glass, which explored how Chinese aesthetics had influenced Western fashion. It was one of the most attended exhibitions in the museum's history. Rihanna showed up in that very iconic yellow guope cape gown that you have probably definitely seen, even if you don't know what it is. It's the one that looks like an omelet, but it's Rihanna, and somehow it just looks so stunning. It was a very big moment. In 2018, the theme was Heavenly Bodies, Fashion, and the Catholic Imagination. So think about that for a second, okay? The assignment was to dress in Catholic inspired couture at the Met Gala, where everyone is already going all out. So once again, Rihanna, she's like the queen of the Met. She showed up and she showed out. She showed up as the Pope, like Papal Regalia, the whole thing. It is one of the most talked about Met Gala looks of all time. In 2019, it was Camp, Notes on Fashion, inspired by a Susan Sontag essay about irony, theatricality, and excess. Lady Gaga, she wore 4 different outfits on the carpet and stripped out of each one of them in front of everyone on the steps. Jared Leto carried his own severed head made by Gucci just to match his outfit. Cardi B wore a gown with a 40-foot train. Very camp. So, camp, not camping. Do you know what I mean? It's not like outdoor camping. Anyway, in 2022, the dress code was Gilda Glamour, and Kim Kardashian wore Marilyn Monroe's actual dress, the original 1962 Happy Birthday, Mr. President gown. She, if you watch the show, she had to lose 16 pounds in 3 weeks to fit into it. There was significant controversy about whether that was appropriate, both the dieting and the handling of a historical artifact. All that fun jazz. The museum that owned the dress later said that it had been returned damaged. So it was a whole thing. And then last year, 2025, the theme was super fine, tailoring Black style, celebrating the history of Black dandyism and the role of fashion in forming Black identity. The carpet was blue, not red. It was beautiful. Co-chairs included A$AP Rocky, Pharrell Williams, Coleman Domingo, and Lewis Hamilton. Lauryn Hill made her first ever Met Gala appearance. Rihanna showed up last. Queen she is. She revealed her 3rd pregnancy on the carpet, and she wore custom Marc Jacobs. Like I said, she never disappoints. She's like the queen of the Met. Also, my personal favorite was 2013's theme, Punk, Chaos to Couture, which focused on the aesthetic influence of punk from the 70s to the current day back then, so 2013. And this year, 2026, like I said, the theme is costume art, asking the question, is fashion art? And I would say, yeah, duh. My fashion is not art. Obviously, my fashion is non-existent. I'm wearing camo sweatpants and a black Levi's hoodie with somehow I stained my black hoodie. I don't know. There's also random holes in it. Where they came from, I don't know. Anyway, so why does any of this matter though, right? Like a bunch of wealthy people doing wealthy things, wearing clothes and jewelry worth more than our homes. Here's the thing I think about with the Met Gala. It's easy to watch it and see it as just spectacle, rich people in expensive outfits at an expensive party, la 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 la. Yeah, it is that. But the Costume Institute is a real museum doing real preservation work. Without this fundraiser, a lot of that work doesn't happen. And as seemingly wasteful as it is, fundraisers do best when they're made into a spectacle. Also, the Costume Institute is the only department at the Met that has to fund itself. All the other wings and departments get museum funding. So without this event, the museum couldn't afford to keep clothes from the 1600s, 1700s, maybe even before that. They wouldn't be able to afford keeping them from turning into dust. So that's history preservation. And whether you see it or not, fashion does, and I think it should get studied seriously as an art form, as a cultural document, as history. You might not think of it this way, but what people wore tells you so much about who they were, what they believed, what they were afraid of, what they wanted to say. A Bob Mackie naked dress in 1974 donned on Cher, if you forgot. I've already mentioned it like 3 times. That's a statement about liberation. A Rihanna Papal gown in 2018 is a conversation about religion and power and beauty. Beyonce, who hasn't been to the Met Gala in 10 years, she comes back this year when the theme is literally about whether fashion is art, and she shows up in a crystal skeleton gown. The gown is ultimately making a statement that the body itself is the art. The bones are the structure underneath every beautiful thing. It's her kind of saying, like, I am the foundation. I am what everything else is built on. Some might even interpret this gown as the ultimate fuck you to the elitism of the event itself, while also being the most elite person there. So again, art up for interpretation. Because in art history, skeletons aren't just about death, okay? Coming from a former emo kid obsessed with skeletons and skulls back in the day, skeletons in art history are about the fact that underneath all our status. So in this case, it'd be under the jewelry, under the $100,000 tickets. We are all the exact same. So fashion at its best isn't just clothes, it's communication, it's interpretation, it's thinking. Like, think of a painting. When we're looking at a painting, we are looking at someone's thoughts. And when we look at a dress from the 1600s, we're looking at how someone lived. And I think that's very beautiful. And I think that's very intimate. And as fashion has evolved, where maybe it's less about necessities and more art, I just think it's beautiful to see how people interpret things like that. Anyway, that's all I have for today's episode. We are past the halfway mark for my goal of one episode per week. So thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode or you have thoughts or you want to tell me your Met Gala hot take, please share. I'm on Instagram at indistinct.pod, also at Eliza Hollister. Feel free to send me episode ideas, send me conspiracy theories, send me pictures of your pets, whatever you want to send, minus like nudes and stuff. I'll love it. If you really want to show me love, please leave a rating or a review wherever you listen. Share it with a friend, share it with, I don't know, I guess share it with anybody. They don't have to be your friend. Like, comment, do all the things. I really appreciate it. As you know, it does so much more than you think. It costs $0. It doesn't just feed my ego, okay? It just helps small podcasts get more notice, I guess. Anyway, we will chat next week. Love ya. Love you. Bye.